there, I'm Carol the Crafty Grandma, and today we are going to be finishing. Sorry, I see something odd on my screen. Let me figure out what's going on. Can I get out of this? There we go. Sorry about that. Today we are going to be doing the bench pillow for all seasons, September, which is behind me. And we have already completed all of the applique and then the quilting. So putting the pieces together, we've got the borders on it. Today our activity is going to be making the sandwich. So we're going to get a backing, which we have right here. Oops. There we go. And then we have batting. And I'm using the Warm and Natural. I've used that before. And after we do that, we're going to make an envelope, which puts a back on it so we can stuff the pillow inside at the end. So that's what we're going to be doing today. And I'm going to switch out here. I've got some new cameras, so I'm playing around a little bit, trying to see. That one was fuzzy. I'm not so crazy about it. I'm not certain I like it, but we'll see. I have this one here for some close-up work, so we're going to do that. And we still got the one over on the sewing machine, so we're going to have fun with that too. All right, we have the directions. You haven't already seen this? Bench pillows for all seasons. It's from anniescatalog.com. And we are doing the September one, and you will need to purchase this book if you want to make these because they have all of the applique patterns in them. So the directions say, follow directions for finishing the pillow front in the general instructions. Okay, let's go back to the beginning. General instructions. Well, look at that. It says just what I said. We're going to take a piece of backing, a piece of batting, and we're going to sandwich them together. How hard can that be? So 18 inches by 40 inches is what they say to cut the pieces to. And the pillow front is, let's see. 39 inches by 16 and a half. So they're saying to cut this 40, that's an inch wider, by 18, which is almost 2 inches wider. The 2 inches is correct. The 1 inch is too small. So I am going to cut mine to 18 by 41. And that being said, I'm not going to cut it at all. Now that I think about it, that's just silly. Fabric is 42 inches wide, I think. Fabric is 40 inches, so I'm just going to leave it as is. And then 18 inches. Okay, that new camera is probably going to get in my way. Let's move it out of my way. Go. And I am just using muslin for all of the pillows in this series. The inside, the backing of the quilt, I am using muslin because the muslin is never going to be seen. The pillow is going to go inside an envelope. So the pillow is going to be covering up the back of the quilt. We don't ever see it. And I am going to trim off the string here. I don't have to trim it off. It came off all by itself. And now I need batting. Let's see here. Where did I use it last? That's not going to be wide enough, I don't think. Nope, too small. So my guess is I went this way. Did I do that? Nope, too small. I don't know what I used this for last. All right. Is that wide enough? That's wide enough. Excellent. So I cheat with my batting. I just take my backing and cut around the backing. All right, there we go. Okay. That's as far as we're going with that one. Put it back in the packaging so I don't forget which brand it is. Because I do now have a couple different brands wandering around, so I want to make sure I keep them straight. Okay. So now we have our backing and our batting. And you can't see very well. Let me adjust this a little bit. Let's see here. That's a little bit better. I'm not certain what happened there, but something happened. Okay, so we have our batting and our backing. And again, we're never going to see the backing. So I don't care what it looks like. I'm not going to iron it. I'm not going to press it. I don't care. I just don't care. But we do care about the front. So we're going to put the front on. And I am going to use some fabric spray. And start on one side. I have never had a problem with my rulers knocking into each other before, but today they are making a ton of racket. Apparently, I'm just being annoyed by them. So let me make them quiet. There, I've still got two there, but I don't think they're going to make as much noise as all of the rest of them. All right, so we're making sure that we have backing and batting underneath all areas of the quilt, and we're smoothing out the quilt top as we go. So we want to make sure that it's nice and tight on the backing or batting. Don't have any spray. Where does it start? There it is. And remember I said I was going to do it just to 40 inches because that was the width of the fabric. So we are right at the edge of the backing and the batting because of the fact that I only did it to 40 inches. Alrighty, so everything is now straight and secure, and we can quilt. Does it give any quilting directions? Let's look at the actual picture again. Quilt curvy tendril lines around the pumpkin and vein lines in the leaves using green thread. So I'm going to need to draw on my fabric some things that I want to quilt. I am using a Frixon pen, and all it shows is in the leaves a line drawn about 3/4 of the way from the top of the leaf to the point. So it kind of curves just a little bit because the tip of the leaf curves. Okay, there's that. And then it shows from the pumpkin up and around itself and down and up. And then from this side of the pumpkin, shows it kind of going out and down and up and down and over. All right, so that's the only direction it gives me for quilting. Everything else is up to me. And this particular batting can be stitched up to 10 inches apart. So the batting doesn't have to be right on top of each other, or the stitching doesn't have to be right on top of each other. And they do show, and that's not a bad idea, I could do that. They show quilting cross hatch in the squares. So I can do that. That's going to be easy. And that still gives us quite a bit of space in here that's not stitched. Let's see. From that leaf to there is 8 inches. All right. 8 inches. The deepest point there is 7.5. From 1 to 1 is, oh, that's quite a ways. So I'm thinking that I might do a bit of a stitch around the scarecrow. That would finish it off and leave me not too much space between quiltings. Okay, so we've got it set up. Now we just need to get the machine set up. Let's switch over there. So the machine is all still set up from the other day when we were piecing. So let's get rid of our piecing thread. And the bobbin. And we need our walking foot. And we need a screwdriver and a quilting needle. And I need a piece of fabric here. I'm going to get rid of this needle. And it is going in the garbage because it had all sorts of goop on it from the applique. That. Let's put the needle in. And this is a quilting needle, 80 quilting needle. It's all I ever use are 80 quilting needles. I know there are other sizes, but that's what I use. There we go. Okay, so now I need to decide what I'm going to start quilting first. I'm going to do the cross hatches on. No, I'm going to do the design around the pumpkin first, or on the pumpkin first. So black. I have my stitch in the ditch foot on. Hold on just a second. Let's switch that out for our regular one. Don't need to stitch in the ditch right now. There we go. That's better. I don't need that much starting thread. Let's get that out of the way. And get our quilt. So here are the lines I drew, and that's what I'm going to follow. And I'm going to extend my stitch length to 3.0. And I am going to knot the thread, seal the thread, whatever term you want to use, at the beginning and the end, because it's not going into anything. I'm going to set my needle to default to needle down position. Now, obviously, I drew this line myself, so if I'm not right on it, it's no big deal. It's just for guidance for me, so that I knew generally where I wanted to stitch. And since I am absolutely no good at free motion, this is as close as I'm going to get to free motion. All right, picked up a safety pin. Okay, this is going to be a little challenging. Let's see if I can make this curve. Without making it look like a straight line on top of something. Alrighty. So that's the black. And I'll go back to the ironing board and get rid of the blue line. We just need to heat it up and then it'll go away. So now I'm going to do the leaves. I'll switch over to my green thread. Got fuzzies on my walking foot. Okay. And now we're going to do the leaves. Again, sealing the stitches at the beginning and the end. Well, that was a lot longer than I had intended it to be, but oh well. Last leaf here. Alrighty, now let's do around the scarecrow in white. So I'm going to use a bright white thread because I've got on the bright white fabric. I must have, there it is. I already had it over here. Wrong bobbin in there. That's for my other machine. that didn't work. Let's try this again. There we go. Alright, so now I'm just going to outline the scarecrow a little bit, just to give me some additional stitching. Okay, so now I have some additional stitching in here so that we've got the correct amount of distance in the center of the quilt so that the batting doesn't all just bunch up eventually. And that's the whole reason for the distance. It's the batting over time will potentially gather up and get messed up. And the last thing I'm going to do is the hashes, or hash on the squares in the corner, on the edges here. And for that, I am going to use my brown thread. Woo! Bobbin went flying across the room. Let's get that back. Oh, and FYI, if you use the batting adhesive or the spray adhesive on your quilt, keep in mind that you are going to get fuzzies on your needle. You're going to get, it's going to be sticky. So you will only be able to use this needle once. You're not going to be able to use it more than once. And if you want to draw lines, you're certainly able to do that. It's your quilt. You can do whatever makes you happy. I am going to wing it. And now where I'm starting in the middle of the quilt, I am going to fix the stitching. I think I missed. I did. I didn't do that first square. Now we're going to go this way. Oh! As I knock things over. Let's do it this way. It's probably going to get annoying, but I'd rather go from the middle of the quilt out. I didn't need to fix that one now that I'm looking at it. It's off the edge, so it'll be sealed in a seam. So now we have our crosshairs, a crosshatch on the squares on that side. And now we're going to do it on this side, same way. I just had one cat enter the room, and I hear the other one, so there may be fighting, which is actually just playing, but not certain. We'll have to wait and see where we go with this one. I don't need to fix this one because it's going to be in the seam. Don't need to fix it because we're not going to be sealed in a seam. Alrighty, so now I'm looking, as I've been doing this, I've been thinking, I'm going to put a couple of different lines. Up a little bit. And go over here. And that just gave a little definition to our post. And now I'm going to do some little lines over here. That didn't quite work out the way I wanted it to. Okay. And then let's see if I can start a little ways in and make it match the other side. So now I've given a little definition to our hand. I'm going to have to do that on the other side so they look similar. Otherwise that would just be silly. It would look funny. Little finger here. All right, I think I've gone far enough with all of this. Let's step away from the machine. So now we're going to need to take all of the extra threads and cut them, which there's a ton of. And not all of them popped up. That's weird. All right, let's see. Okay, let me hang this up. Let me see. There? There? Nope. Here. And show you how it came out. So there we go. Still a little fuzzy on the camera, but not too bad. We've got all cross hatching on the side. Defined the scarecrow a little bit. And we've got our lines coming around from his head. And the veins in the leaves. And then we added the definition in the fingers, which you can't see too well, but so we've got quite a bit of quilting there, and we made sure that we are at least so the furthest distance there is 8.5. We're only talking 2.5, 4.5. We've got the correct distance shown for the quilting, so that's going to work for that. I am going to put the buttons on now. And the buttons are the eyes. Oops, maybe not. Maybe I won't be able to pick them up. We're going to make eyes for our scarecrow. And then these little red ones here are going to define the overalls. So to do this, we need to go back to the machine. And we will need to switch off or take off the walking foot. Come on, there we go. But I'm just going to leave the quilting needle on. I could switch it out, but I don't see any real reason for it. The difference between a quilting needle and a regular needle is that the quilting needle has a bigger eye, and that is not going to cause us any problems with putting a button on. So depending upon your machine, this may be the step that you stop at. And what feet you have, I guess. Because even this machine doesn't come with the button foot. All you would do is you'd put the button underneath and hold it down with the ankle. You don't want you want an actual foot on there, because that would just cause heartaches, because you wouldn't have enough room to actually put the button on. I am switching to the black thread, and I'm going to stick with that even on the red buttons. I'm not going to worry about color matching for the button. I just don't think brown would look right with the black eyes, so we're going to do that. So I have a button foot. This foot holds the button in place. It's got a little metal piece that holds it in place. If you don't have one, like I said, you're going to be using the ankle. You're going to take the presser foot off and you're going to use the ankle. I guess if you really wanted to, you could use an open toe foot like this. I think that would be very annoying, because the just goes back and forth, but I don't know. You're going to want to drop your feed dogs so they don't try and move the fabric, and you want to use either a button foot if you have one, or no foot at all, just use the ankle to hold the button down. Let's see, I need to move my buttons out of the way because I need to put my quilt up there. And for those of you that are very particular, you can measure the distance, figure out exactly where you want your buttons to be. That's a perfectly acceptable thing to do. I am not going to do that. So you set your machine for zigzag. You take your walk or feed dogs, drop them down, and that gives you a button stitch. Because all a button stitch is a zigzag. And then very carefully you place your button where you want it to sit. And close your eyes so that when the needle breaks, like it almost always does for me, you don't get a needle in your eye. Miracle of all miracles, it didn't break. So I should have done the front two first, and I didn't. And I know better than that. Anytime you have a 4-hole button, you do the ones furthest away first, but I wasn't paying attention. Okay, now we're going to put this one on, and we're going to do it the correct way this time. And there we go. Forward and get the other two. There we go. Okay. Now we'll move down here. That's not right. That's hopefully right. I don't think that's stitched all the way, so I'm going to do it one more time. Now pull it forward just a bit. Last button. And again, if you are very particular, you are going to want to measure across and make sure you have it exactly the same spot on both sides and all of that good stuff. Now the directions say to make a mouth using a cross stitch, and the insinuation is to do it by hand. I believe I have a design that will work. As a cross stitch. Yes, I do. That is lovely. So I am going to use my machine to stitch my cross stitch. And don't know why it says the bee foot, but I will do that. I will do what it says. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. There it is. So normally I am using my standard foot, which is the A foot. It is telling me to use the B foot. I don't know why. They are very similar. The B foot has lines on it. Maybe that's why. I don't know. But I'm going to do what it tells me to do. I'm going to start up a little bit so that we smile. Oops, I lost my thread. And why did my thread get caught? Let's see here. Where's the problem? Ah! Thread got messed up. Okay. So thread, probably manufacturing something. You can't see it on camera, but got bunched up and knotted, and that doesn't work. No, you're still, what's going on? Press your foot up. There we go. That helps. Duh. It helps if you can get it through the needle. I give up. I hate that thing. "99% of the time I can make it work. 1% of the time it just annoys me." Let's go down a little bit more. Now go across. after I figured out what I was doing, it turned out fine. Whoa! The beginning didn't turn out very well, but I like the way it ended, so it was the right idea. Just needed more practice to implement it correctly. Now, the nose. It says to just do a straight stitch, or yeah, straight line down. I'm thinking there might be a better stitch that I can use. Oh, here we go. What about that? Fix it and stop it. Just one. So a little triangle for the nose. And now my pumpkin has a face. And we are back to trimming threads, because that's all we ever do. And you may be wondering, Carol, why aren't you messing with the back? Lots of threads back there. You are correct. But again, no one is ever going to see the back. I don't care. Don't care what it looks like. And now we're going to trim up the ends so everything is even and pretty. So let's get this annoying ruler that's been knocking around all morning. We need, because we've got nice squares on the side, I'm going to use those as my reference point. It needs to be from the stitching point where they're joined 2.5 inches out. And I'm going to do the exact same thing to the second side. 2.5 inches. Or, sorry, not 2.5, 2.25. And now the long sides. I'm going to step over here so I can use the long side of my cutting board. And this time, I am going to square it up using, using the seam that goes this way on the blocks and the seam that goes this way on the grass. That way we get a perfectly square. I have to make sure the quilt is all correctly located under the ruler. We're going to have trouble. There we go. The longer the span you're cutting, the more troublesome it can be. Now this is going to be challenging because we have to line it up with that one. The last side. And this is where, in the last part, I pointed out that I had misstitched my 1/4 inch and added a 1/16 of an inch to a bunch of these squares. So now I've got a 1/4 of an inch up here. That means that when I line this up to get it square, I want it at 2 inches instead of the 2 1/4 we used on the other side, because my white fabric, my main fabric, is a 1/4 of an inch shorter. So I'm going to cut my blocks off at a 1/4 of an inch-ish. The ruler back. And as I'm thinking about this, I probably should have ironed it before I put the buttons on, but I didn't. So we'll just have to live with that. All right, I will need to be very careful that I don't melt my buttons. Hey, FedEx truck is here. Woohoo! That means I am getting something fun to do with all of you next time. There we go. So here we can see the lines. And this is where I didn't follow the lines very well. Is it too blurry? Yeah, maybe not. So, get the iron out. Let's see if it's warm enough. It's still a little cold. My machine, or my iron, automatically turns off when I let's see. Is that what I want? It's not working. Why is it not doing what I want it to do? Picture in picture. There we go. And I want it to be that one. I want that one in the back. I'll get the hang of this stuff one of these days. There we go. So now we've got another car pulling up to the house. FedEx just left. I don't know. I shouldn't care. Let me get back to ironing. Just be careful you don't iron the buttons, because the buttons that I have are plastic. And we do not want the plastic buttons melting. That would totally ruin all of our hard work. I'm getting close to the buttons. Trying to stay as far away from them as I can. And we no longer have blue lines on our fabric. From what I've read on something, if you live in a temperature where, or a climate where it does get cold, really cold, the lines may come back because they come back when they're cold. They go away when they're heated and they come back when they get cold. So keep that in mind if you live in a climate where it gets really, really cold. You may want to reconsider using the Frixon pens because the lines may come back. That car is still sitting out in front of my house, and I just don't know why. Let's get this out of the way. Is this where I want it? Not quite. Hey, the car just left. I know, it's probably just me being weird, but I don't like it when people sit in front of my house. It bothers me. Here we go. So now we see the completed quilt top. The last thing we have to do is we have to make an envelope for the pillow to fit in. And to do that, we need to get that camera out of the way. Actually, it's still going to be in the way. So let's put it all the way over there. And then zoom out to me. There we go. Too many cameras, I'm having too much fun. And finish the envelope. The way we do that is we get two 11.5 by 38.5 inch rectangles. So we need our fabric back, our muslin back. On other pillow tops, I have used, this is my third month. The first one I used white. It was for July. It was a red, white, and blue. And so I used white for the envelope. On the August pillow cover, I used blue as my back because the front of it is a boat scene, so water scene. So I used that. For this one, I am just going to use the muslin because I do want an off-white look. I don't want the bright white. I've got the bright white here. I'm still not 100% liking it. It still bothers me a bit. I would have preferred that I had an off-white fabric because bright white just doesn't represent September to me. So I am going to use the muslin for the back. I couldn't bring myself to put muslin on the front of a quilt. I couldn't do it. But for the envelope, I'm okay with it. And it said 2 11.5 inches. So that's 23 inches. Stop. And we're going to keep it folded. Fold it again. That way we can trim it up. And the torn edge, I'm going to cut it off. So I'm trimming it up here. And I need it to be 11.5 inches wide. And I do not have a ruler that does that, so I'm using the 2 ruler method. I take the second ruler and I find the 1 and I go to 11.5 inches and I line that up on the cut edge that I just made. I take my nice smaller ruler and I butt them up together and I make sure that it's on the fold on the bottom. And then I cut. And now I have a piece that's 11.5 inches wide. And I'm going to repeat that step on this piece. Making sure we're even on the fold. And throw away the trash. Now to get the other side, the other piece, the other part of this needs to be 38.5 inches. So from the fold, I am going to measure in 15, well, let's use the calculator. Calculator, come on, it's here somewhere. There it is. So 38.5 divided by 2 is 19.25 inches. So now I'm going to use this and I'm going to measure from the fold. Make sure you do it from the fold. If you do it from the other side, you're going to have 2 pieces. 19.25 inches from the fold. Use our ruler. And it is now 38.5 inches, which should be the width of our quilt, which it is. Let's do that one more time for this second piece so we can get our envelope made. 19.25 inches. And now we have the 2 parts of our envelope. And to make the envelope, we need to iron, press, whatever term you would like to use. And here I am going to use my spray starch. I was supposed to be trying a new brand of spray starch today, but sadly, my grocery order didn't show up before I started filming, even though it was supposed to be here well before I was supposed to start filming. So muslin's really hard to get fold lines out of. It's just, it's naturally wrinkly. I say that, and I'm sure that it's not. It's just me, and I find that it is. Okay, the first step is to measure up 1/4 of an inch on a long side. And I have every gadget known to man, and this is a guide. It's got centimeters, it's got inches, it's got all that good stuff on it. Sadly, the only place that it has 1/4 of an inch is on this short side right here. So I have to put this down and fold it up. And I don't start on the edge. I start kind of in a little bit. That way I have a full piece of fabric to use. And once I do it on this piece once, I'm not going to use the guide the whole way down. I'm only going to use it here because I can pretty much eyeball it. And I do when I'm done usually, sometimes I forget, usually I will measure it again and make sure that I've got the 1/4 of an inch. And by the way, this does get hot. But once you do it, once you start it, you can pretty much eyeball the 1/4 of an inch the rest of the way down. Let's see, how did I do? I did well. So now we're going to do this a second time because we don't want a raw edge on the pillow cover, the envelope, whatever term we want to use. So we fold it over twice. First one got our 1/4 of an inch, or got the edge down, got the cut edge folded over. And this one is sealing the cut edge into a fold. And it doesn't want to stay really well, but we're just going to go with it. Set this over by the sewing machine because that's where we're going to use it next. And pull the second one out. And does it have to, it's not nearly as bad as wrinkly as the other one was. So we're going to go with it, except for that middle part. Let's get that ironed out a little bit. I put way too much of that on there. I've lost my water glass. That's because I forgot to bring it into the room with me. I was running terribly late this morning. I was having it wasn't working for me. I don't know where my brain was. There we go. Almost didn't get turned on in time. That's how far behind I was running. Let's see, 1/4 of an inch. There we go. And we are 1 hour 45 minutes into this. I think we'll be done at the 2-hour mark. So I'm glad I didn't push through on part 2 and try and get this all done, because we would have been very tired by the time we got done with that. I was thinking I had 1.5 hours left to go, but it's actually going to be 2 hours. Now what that means for you is you're going to get a bonus video, because I am going to make a bag out of jelly roll strips. And I'm going to film it, and I'm going to try and edit it, which is a brand new activity for me. And then put it out there so you can see how to make a bag with jelly rolls, because it's really, really easy. End of this is hanging just off the ironing board. I'm not certain it's going to actually get pressed. No. Thought I had it far enough along. I'm not pressing on the iron. I just don't know what else to do with my hand. So it's here. Okay, now we do the second fold. And if you would like, grab some pins and pin this together. I strongly encourage you to iron it first. I have seen people that do this just by folding it twice and pinning it and then sewing it. I don't think it looks as sharp. I like the folding aspect so that it gets nice and sharp, and I say that and it's kind of opening as we go, but it's still better than just rolling it up and ironing it, in my opinion. Okay. Now we're going to go back to the sewing machine. I am not going to change my thread. I'm going to leave that black thread on there. I don't think it'll cause any problems. I don't think it'll look terrible. I think that having black thread on this fabric will be just fine. I am going to switch from the B foot back to the A foot though, just because. And then set it back, oops, medium, straight, there we go. So I can do that, and put this fabric under here and shift it just a bit. So because it's 1/4 of an inch on my machine, and most machines have the same dimensions anyway, this needle is in the center. I'm going to set this so that my folded edge runs right on the feed dogs. That way I get fairly close to the second or the first fold, because this is the second fold, to the first fold, so that it's close to each other. I'm not going to seal the stitches because they're going to be inside the fold of the envelope, or when we join everything together. And stay on the fold. Oh, and I do have the standard stitch length of 2.5 because I just set the machine to go and didn't worry about it. So towards the beginning, I started to go off the edge a little bit, and then I got back on and everything. Got a little bit wide there. Nope, almost lost it again there. But everything is in place, and that is a very poorly done top stitch. But again, it's the back of the pillow. I don't care that much. It will be seen. This part will be seen. So this you do want to, if you're a perfectionist, you want to take your time with it. And my fold is opening up, you silly fold. And this is where I might want pins, because it doesn't seem to want to stay put. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Let's see. Last step. Everything's falling all over the place. Okay. We take our pillow cover front, put it on here, face up. We take one of the pieces and place it with the right side, so the side that doesn't have the fold showing down. I personally want this first one to be on the bottom of the quilt, because when I have this done, I want the top piece, no, I did that backwards. I want it on the top, because I want the top piece on the outside. So this first piece goes on the top. The second piece, again, right side down, goes on the bottom. And when I turn it around, that's going to be on the outside, that's going to be on the inside. And I say that and I'm probably all backwards, and I'm going to be very upset with myself when I get done. So clip all these pieces together so that they stay together as we sew. Do you need a million clips or a million pins? No, but you do need some. Otherwise, the pieces, 3 pieces, will just float around. And now we are going to sew all the way around. Doesn't matter where we start, doesn't matter where we end, as long as we end. I am not going to put my walking foot back on just because I don't care that much. If you would like to put your walking foot on, put your walking foot on. And let's see, everything is set, everything is set. All right, fix. And we're using a 1/4 inch seam. And here is where the walking foot would have come in handy. The bottom of the bottom, which is the quilted piece, is much longer than this piece now. Because without feed dogs on the top, you're going to get the fabric on the top, or on the bottom, moving faster than the fabric on the top. Again, lots of extra fabric here. Now we're going to trim our corners. And if you ended up with a lot of extra fabric like I did, you're welcome to trim that down too. Well, now would be the time to do that. And the corners you want to trim as close as you can get to the stitched line without cutting the stitched line. And then you just use the big opening. You turn your pillow cover right side out. Poke out your corners. And I did it the right way. I put the envelope, the piece of the envelope on the top first, that way it is on the top. Because I think if this was on the top, it would be sagging all the time and drive me crazy. I have debated on putting Velcro in these so that after I put the pillow in, there is a way to close it, but it hasn't really been a problem so far. Like I said, this is my third month, and third time I've done this. So, bench pillow for all seasons. This is the September cover. Not 100% happy with it. Still don't like that bright white, but that's what I had. You use what you have. So. That's the end of today. It did take me just about 2 hours to get this all done. And I hope that you come back and see me next month to do the October. And also, I'm going to be filming, I mentioned I'm going to be filming another video and editing it. So we're going to see about making a box bag. You all have a wonderful day, and we will see you again next time.